Now, anytime you open a raw photograph, whether it's a DNG file or otherwise, it's going to open inside Camera Raw. And we're going to see what that looks like in this movie. So here I am inside Photoshop, and I'm just going to go up to the File menu and choose the Open command. And I'll navigate to the 12 Camera Raw subfolder inside the Exercise Files folder, where I'll find, among other images, this file right here called aliciainhat.dng. And if I click the Open button, notice that the image doesn't open inside Photoshop, nor am I even asked how I want to open the file. It just automatically opens inside Camera Raw. And that's because Photoshop doesn't know what to do with this image until it's developed. Now, obviously, this image is overexposed, which is why I'm going to start things off by decreasing the exposure value. And by way of a little tip here, notice if you move your cursor over the central portion of the histogram, you're going to see the word exposure up there at the top of the screen, at which point you can drag the histogram back and forth directly in order to modify that exposure value. And in the end, I came up with an exposure of negative 0.85, and then I increased the contrast value to plus 45 like so. Now we need to balance the colors. So I'll go ahead and select the white balance tool, which is the gray eyedropper up here in the horizontal toolbar. And then I'll click on a color that should be neutral. Now, if you end up clicking on a color that's too bright, such as the white inside this cloud, then at first Camera Raw will ignore you. But if you click again, it's going to give you a warning telling you that the color that you clicked on is too bright. In which case, just go ahead and click OK and find something slightly darker, such as the edge of this cloud right there. And notice as soon as I click on it, I get a much warmer image. In this case, Camera Raw came up with a temperature value of 6,700. That's a little bit high for me, so I'm going to click inside that value and press the down arrow key until I get a temperature of 6,500 degrees. A tint value of +2 is just fine. And now it appears to me at this point that the image is oversaturated, so I went ahead and took the vibrance value down to -15. All right, now let's say you want a kind of before and after preview so you can see what you've done. In that case, you can click on this icon in the lower right corner of the image preview in order to toggle all the settings off. So you're going to toggle the default settings here, and then if you click again, you're going to toggle the settings back on. What you don't want to do is toggle the settings off and then click the Done button, because then you'll save the image with the settings turned off. So be sure you toggle the settings back on before you click Done. Another option is to see a side-by-side preview, and you get that by clicking on this little Y icon right there. And so notice the first time I click, I cycle to the side-by-side before and after view. And if I want to center things a little better, I can just spacebar drag the image like so, and notice both images move as one. If I click again, I will cycle to the split view. A third click takes me to a top and bottom view, and then a fourth click takes me to this vertical split right there. Now, if you grow tired of cycling, for example, if you know exactly what view you want to look at, then you can click and hold on this icon and choose, for example, before, after, left, right split in order to see this view right here. You can also swap the views with each other by clicking on this second icon, which is the swap icon. But notice that does change the meaning of your edits. We now have the edits on the before side and the lack of edits on the after side. And again, if we leave things that way, if you go ahead and click the Done button at this point, then you will save no changes. You'll save the Camera Raw defaults, which is why it's always a good idea to go ahead and click that swap icon once again. And in the end, I'm just going to go ahead and switch back to the single view. All right, now you have the option of clicking the Done button to save your non-destructive modifications back to the DNG file, or if it's some other RAW file format, then Camera Raw will create an independent sidecar file. Or you can save off your non-destructive modifications and open the image inside Photoshop by clicking on the Open Image button. And then you'll see your developed image on screen. But bear in mind that it is going to be a static, flat background. So in other words, Photoshop is unaware of the specific Camera Raw settings, and this amounts to an unsaved image as well. So if I go to the File menu and choose the Save command, then Photoshop will ask me to create a new image file. But first, before I do that, I want you to notice the title of this image, aliciainhat.dng. The thing is, Photoshop does not actually allow you to save off a DNG file. So if I do go to the File menu and choose the Save command, then I'm going to be offered some other file format, such as JPEG or TIFF, or even the native PSD format, but we're not going to see a RAW format on this list. Now you might say, wait a sec, Deke, I actually see a RAW file format. It's called Photoshop RAW. That is not a file format that you want to use. It has nothing to do with RAW imagery or digital photography in general. It is instead a very old school backup format that allows Photoshop to dump as much data as it can in the hopes that some other application might be able to read it, but it is not a format that you are ever likely to use. And so because this is just a flat digital photograph, I'm going to save it to the JPEG format, albeit under a different name. So I'll just go ahead and select the current name and call this, let's say, Developed Portrait. And then I'll go ahead and click the Save button and click OK in response to the JPEG options. And that is how you open and develop a RAW photograph inside Camera Raw, not to mention how you cycle through the before and after previews.